She had learned long ago how to be quiet, not quiet in the way of fear, right? But the kind that grows when someone spends many hours alone with a piano. The room where she practiced was small and plain. The paint on the walls had faded. The window faced another building, so very little light came in. Still, every afternoon after school, she sat there and played. Not because someone forced her to. Not because she wanted praise. She played because it was the only place where her thoughts slowed down and her chest felt lighter. The piano was old. A few keys sounded softer than the rest. Sometimes the pedal made a small noise. She knew all of this, yet she loved it. When her fingers touched the keys, the outside world felt far away. The noise, the doubts, the pressure, all of it faded for a while. She was still very young. The music had already shaped her life. While others spent evenings watching shows or scrolling on their phones, she practiced. She missed gatherings. She turned down invites. Not because she felt better than anyone else, but because music asked for time and she gave it willingly. Even so, she was not someone people noticed at school events. Her name was rarely announced with excitement. Teachers spoke kindly, but without strong belief. Friends said things like, "You're good," and then quickly changed the topic. She learned not to expect much. She learned to keep her hopes small and private. When the invitation arrived, she read it 3 times to make sure it was real. It was for an open music session held in a large concert hall downtown. Young performers could play in front of experienced musicians and instructors. It was not a competition, but it wasn't casual either. Many who attended were serious about music. Some had been training for decades. Her hand shook as she held the paper. She knew what the hall meant. Big space, bright lights, many eyes. It was nothing like her small practice room. Still, something inside her whispered that she should go. Not because she was sure she would succeed, but because she would regret it if she didn't try. On the day of the session, the sky was gray. She arrived early, wearing the only formal dress she owned. It was simple and plain, but clean and pressed. Her hair was neat. Her shoes felt stiff. As she walked into the hall, the size of it almost made her stop. The ceiling was high. Rows of seats stretched far back. The stage lights were already on, casting a soft glow over the grand piano at the center. People moved around quietly, holding folders, talking in low voices. Some laughed easily as if they belonged there. She felt small. She found a seat near the side and waited. Her name was on the list, somewhere near the middle. Not first, not last. The waiting made her nerves worse. Each performer before her seemed confident. Their hands moved fast. Their posture was strong. Some performances were met with polite claps, others with warm smiles and nods. A few drew whispers of approval from the front row. She listened carefully, trying not to compare herself, but it was hard. When her turn was announced, it felt like the air left her lungs. She stood up slowly and walked toward the stage. Each step felt heavy. The hall seemed quieter now, even though people were still there. She could hear her own breathing. She could hear the sound of her shoes on the floor as she reached the piano bench. A senior figure at the front of the hall looked up. This person was known for high standards and sharp opinions. Many respected the honesty. Many feared it. The figure glanced at the program, then at her. "You're quite young," the voice said. Not loud, but clear enough for others to hear. She nodded. Unsure what to say. "This piece is not easy," the figure added. "Are you prepared?" The words were simple, but they landed hard. A few people shifted in their seats. Someone near the back cleared their throat. No one spoke up. She felt her face grow warm. Her throat tightened. She wanted to explain how long she had practiced, how many nights she stayed up late, playing the same part again and again until her fingers ached. But no words came out. She simply nodded again and sat down. Her hands rested on her lap. They felt cold. For a moment, she considered standing up and walking away. No one had forced her to be here. She could leave quietly. She imagined going back to her small room, closing the door, and playing where no one watched. That thought hurt. It's more than the fear. She placed her hands on the keys. The first note was soft. Too soft, she thought. Her heart raced. She worried people would hear her nerves. She worried she would make a mistake right away and prove the doubt right. The next few notes followed slowly. Her fingers felt stiff. Her shoulders were tense. Then something familiar happened. As the melody began to take shape, her breathing slowed. The piano felt less like an object on a stage and more like the one she knew so well. The old one with the noisy pedal. The one that had listened to her doubts without judging. She focused on the sound. The room around her faded a little. Not completely, but enough. She still knew people were watching. She still felt the weight of their eyes. But the music gave her something steady to hold on to. There were small mistakes. A note pressed too hard. A pause that lasted a second longer than planned. She noticed them all. But she didn't stop. She kept going. The piece carried emotion, and she leaned into it. She let her hands move the way they had moved hundreds of times before. She remembered why she loved this music, why it mattered to her. In the hall, people began to listen differently. At first, some had watched with guarded expressions. Others had looked down at their programs. But slowly, heads lifted. A few leaned forward. The sound filled the space, gentle but honest. The senior figure at the front no longer spoke. The look of doubt softened into focus. She didn't notice. She was too busy holding herself together, too busy staying present. Every few seconds, fear tried to return. What if the ending fell apart? What if she lost control? Each time, she breathed and kept playing. When she reached a quiet section of the piece, the hall felt very still. No coughing, no shifting. Just listening, her fingers trembled slightly, but they did not stop. She reached the final pages. She knew them well. She had practiced the ending more than any other part. Not because it was the hardest, but because it mattered most. As she played the last note, she let it fade fully before lifting her hands. For one long moment, there was silence. Her heart pounded. She stared at the keys, unsure what came next. She did not look up. She did not smile. The silence was not empty. It was full, heavy. Waiting, she stood slowly and stepped back from the piano. She still did not know how the room felt about what they had just heard. She only knew she had finished. She had not run. She had not stopped. That alone felt like something. She walked off the stage, her legs weak, her thoughts loud. As she reached the side, she finally allowed herself to breathe deeply. Whatever happened next was out of her control, and as she sat down, unsure whether she should feel proud or ashamed, the hall remained quiet just long enough to make her wonder if doubt had won after all. The silence did not break right away. It stretched longer than she expected, longer than she was ready for. At first, she thought it was only a few seconds, but then she realized time felt slower when fear was involved. Her chest tightened and she felt her breath catch halfway in. The quiet pressed against her ears. Old thoughts rushed back in, loud and uninvited. Maybe it wasn't good enough. Maybe they were right to doubt her. Maybe the quiet meant disappointment. She sat very still, afraid that even a small movement would draw attention. Her hands were folded tightly in her lap, fingers locked together as if holding on to something fragile. Her eyes stayed fixed on the floor. She didn't dare look up. Her heart beat so loudly she wondered if anyone nearby could hear it. Beat felt heavy, like it was asking a question she didn't know how to answer. She told herself to stay calm, to breathe, but her body didn't listen. Then someone clapped, just one person at first. The sound was soft, unsure, almost like a question instead of an answer. It came from somewhere near the middle of the hall. For a brief moment, she thought she had imagined it. But then another clap followed, and then another. The sound grew slowly, one person at a time. It wasn't sudden or loud. It felt careful, honest, like rain that begins with a few drops before turning into a steady fall. She lifted her head. People were clapping, not politely, not quickly. They weren't rushing to be done. They were clapping with intention. Some nodded as they did, their faces calm but focused. Others smiled without realizing it, as if the music had left something behind inside them. A few people stood up, their hands coming together with quiet strength, her breath caught in her throat. She didn't stand right away. She wasn't sure what to do. Applause was something she had heard before, but never like this. This applause wasn't sharp or exciting. It wasn't meant to impress. It felt deep, steady. It filled the space and stayed there like it belonged. She felt frozen, caught between disbelief and relief. At the front of the hall, the senior figure rose slowly from their seat. The posture was different now. The face no longer held that guarded look from before. The doubt that once sat clearly in their expression had softened. What remained was calm, thoughtful attention. When she finally stood, her legs felt weak, like they might give way beneath her. She took a small step forward and bowed once, awkward and unsure. Then she bowed again, smaller this time. Her face felt warm, but not from embarrassment. From something else. Something unfamiliar. Pride, maybe. Relief. Or both mixed together in a way she had never felt before. As she walked back toward her seat, the applause continued. Some people leaned forward slightly, as if wanting her to see them clearly. Others met her eyes and nodded. No words were spoken, but the message was clear. They had heard her. Not just the notes, but the feeling behind them. She sat down slowly. Her hands shook now, no longer from fear alone. Tears pressed gently at the corners of her eyes. She blinked them back, confused by their sudden presence. She hadn't expected this reaction. Not from the room, not from herself. She'd only hoped to finish the piece. For the rest of the session, she barely noticed the other performances. She tried to listen, tried to be respectful, but her mind kept drifting back. It replayed the sound of the applause, the feeling of the piano keys beneath her fingers. The moment when her fear loosened its grip, just enough for her to breathe again, she remembered how close she had come to stopping, to walking away, and how she hadn't. When the session finally ended, chairs moved and soft voices filled the air. People gathered their bags and coats. Some spoke quietly about the performances. Others laughed lightly, already thinking about their next plans. She stayed seated. She wasn't sure whether she should leave right away or wait. Part of her wanted to disappear quickly before the moment faded. Another part wanted to stay, just a little longer, to make sure it had really happened. Then someone stopped in front of her. She looked up. It was the same senior figure who had questioned her earlier. Up close, the presence felt different, less heavy, less distant. The voice, when it came, was quiet and steady. "You stayed with the music," the figure said. "That matters." She nodded. Her mouth opened slightly. But no words came out. "It takes courage to keep playing when doubt enters the room," the figure continued. "You did that." There was no long speech, no dramatic praise. There was no apology either. There was something else. Respect? She felt it clearly, and it stayed with her. After that, a few others came by. Not many, just a small number of people. They didn't say much. Simple words only. "Well done." That was moving. "Keep going." Each comment landed softly. They didn't overwhelm her. They didn't demand anything. They simply warmed something inside her that had felt cold for a long time. When she finally stepped outside, she noticed the sky had cleared. The clouds had moved on, leaving the air cool and fresh. She stood there for a moment, breathing deeply. The night felt different. Lighter, the walk home felt shorter than usual. Her steps were slow, but steady. She replayed the evening again and again, not to judge herself, but to understand it. She realized she wasn't replaying mistakes. She was remembering strength. That night she sat at her old piano again, same room. Same faded walls. Same soft, uneven keys. But something had changed. She placed her hands on the keyboard and played the same piece. The sound filled the small space gently. It wasn't perfect. It never was, but it felt honest. She listened more closely this time. She trusted the sound. She trusted herself just a little more than before. In the days that followed, life did not suddenly become easy. She still had doubts, still made mistakes, still felt invisible at times. There were days when she questioned everything again, days when progress felt slow, days when fear returned without warning, but something steady had formed inside her, a quiet strength, the kind that does not shout, the kind that does not need approval every day, the kind that stays, even when no one is watching. She practiced with more patience now, not chasing praise, not trying to prove anything. It's growing one small step at a time. Weeks later, she returned to the hall for another small event. This time her hands still shook, but less. Her steps were steadier. She knew what fear felt like now. She knew she could move through it. She was not famous, not celebrated, was not known by many, but she had learned something important. That night had not made her a musician. She had been one long before she stepped onto that stage. What the night gave her was something deeper, a moment of truth, proof that doubt, even when spoken aloud, does not get the final word. Sometimes all it takes is the choice to sit down, place your hands on the keys, and play anyway. And sometimes, when you do, the room listens.